All right, I'm always talking about the challenging side of magic, all the like trying to warn people about how challenging this stuff can be and what you might be getting yourself into if you decide to go through some kind of initiation process or mess with certain types of magic. Mainly because nobody really quite gave me adequate warning, I felt, and I was very unprepared for what I had just gotten myself into. But maybe I think in this video I'll talk a little more about some of the more fun things, the cool things I've experienced through magic. And there's a few off the top of my head that I can think of. There's been a bunch, but just a few really stood out. One of the first ones, so this is way back when I first got into magic, no initiation process, none of that. And I was really I was getting interested in spirit evocation. And I decided to get into the book of the Goetia. It's the book of 72 demons from the Keys of Solomon. And, in this book, if you do it exactly the way the book tells you, you're going to spend a ton of money and a ton of time on a lot of stuff that I feel is probably not entirely necessary. You're supposed to have like this custom made sword and like a lion skin belt. And like there's just all this stuff. You'll spend so much time and money. So I just kind of did things, and the ad hoc version, and it seemed to work just fine. Um, and my perspective on what these beings are now has changed a lot compared to what it was back then. Um, but it was an interesting experience. So I don't even remember what the point of the ritual was, but I had summoned a spirit. I set a magic circle around me. I made a circle out of my tarot cards, which seems to work pretty well, actually. I had just like a little table with a candle and incense and the sigil of the spirit. And so I do the ritual. And I'm sort of calling the spirit and looking at the sigil. And a couple of interesting things happened. At one point, so I'm sitting on my knees in front of the table. At one point, I kind of leaned forward, and in the smoke, for just a second, I could swear I saw like someone's head, like a face, right here, and I thought I was gonna bump my head into it, and I just kind of jumped back, but obviously there was nothing there, so that was a little weird. And then as I continued, it sounded like I could hear like footsteps going around the circle, like the floor was kind of creaking just a little bit in a circle around me, and that was a little interesting. But what was really crazy is what came afterwards. So when I finished the ritual, I cleaned everything up, put everything away. I sit down on my bed, and suddenly I feel like there's something kind of flying around in the room. It's like this presence moving around, and it hits me in the chest. And it goes inside my chest, and I have the stereotypical Kundalini experience. I mean, it was literally felt like there was two snakes in the bottom of my spine kind of winding up, going up across my spine. I mean, I can't describe it any differently. It literally feels like there are two snakes going up your spine. And then it felt like they kind of met up here in the back of my neck, and suddenly I felt like something poke out of my forehead. It was like a psychedelic experience. It felt like there was like this like falcon's head poked out of my forehead. It was really intense. And then there was just this, everything just seemed like everything was like glowing blue and had these weird like lines of yellow like energy moving around. But I'm also realizing as I'm talking about it, I don't remember the process of that feeling wearing off. Like it was an intense, I mean, very much like a psychedelic experience. It felt very real. But I don't remember it where I think I might have passed out actually. Because I just don't recall the process of that feeling wearing off and coming back to normal. It's just kind of a blank. But that was a really crazy experience. Only ever happened once in my life, and I didn't really notice specifically any super big changes. But once I started getting into magic, a lot of strange things, and life kind of took some wild turns and went in weird directions. But so who knows? But that was an interesting one. Another fun one I thought. So I was doing a ritual to make an offering to the god Thor, right? The god of thunder. So I made a little altar. I poured a shot of whiskey in a shot glass and poured another one for myself. And as I was about to do the offering, I held up my shot in the air and went, Mighty Thor! And then all of a sudden, there was the loudest crack of thunder right next to my window. It was deafening. It scared the hell out of me. And I just laughed, just hysterically for like 10, 15 minutes afterwards. Like, that was crazy. I don't recall any other like major manifestations coming from that ritual, but it was like undeniable at the exact moment that I had said Thor and held up the shot, just right outside the windows. Boom. So that was a crazy one. Um, oh yeah, there was another one during the Zelator grade, the Earth grade in the Kabbalah Magic curriculum. I was just doing my daily rituals, and one of the times I felt this immense presence just show up in the corner of the room. I mean, it's hard to describe. I mean, there's nothing physically there, but you can just feel like this thing was just radiating power and like holy. I mean, it just felt holy. That's the only way I can describe it. It was just this overwhelming, radiating energy coming from the corner of the room, and it just, I just started weeping. I just couldn't do anything but cry and just like wanted to like throw myself on the floor and like pray. It was like, and I'm not even like, I'm not much of a um, praise God kind of guy. But in that moment, I certainly was. It just was overwhelming. It just felt like the most, like a holy thing I could imagine. Again, only ever happened once, never again before or since. And again, nothing particularly amazing happened afterwards. It was just a crazy experience. Another one, and again, in my early days of getting into this kind of stuff, I wanted to do a love, attract new love type kind of spell, right? Because who hasn't tried that? And I can't remember all the details. There was something you burn a couple candles, say a few things, put a bunch of stuff in a heart-shaped box, tape it up, and then put it under your bed when you go to bed. So I did that, and that night I had a dream about this very pretty girl that I mean, she was very beautiful and very interesting, and we were together and dating and everything. And the next day, the band that I was playing with at the time, I was playing drums in a band at the time, and we played at like this weed club. And we get there, and the girl working behind the counter is that exact girl. I mean, it didn't just look like her; it was 100% the same person, same hair. She had this little piercing right there, like one of those beauty mark looking kind of piercings, but it was like a stud. I mean, every detail. I mean, it was 100% that person. Things didn't really, go too far. It was interesting because it didn't take long for me to realize that this person was basically exactly the same as the last girlfriend I had. Like the same issues, the same dynamic came up almost right away. It was like it was the same person in a different form. So I didn't pursue it too far. But it was pretty fascinating to see the exact person that I had just dreamt about showing up in my life like that. Yeah, I mean, there's been plenty of other times, like times where I've like tried to do offerings to a nature spirit at my friend's house one time, and as the moment I put the frankincense resin on the charcoal, suddenly I saw a bright green like meteor flash just go across the sky, like right at that moment. That was kind of cool. And there's been lots of times where we've done things like, you do a money spell and you get a few $100 or $1,000 randomly, or you know, to like a relationship spell and then you meet somebody. Or I mean, there was a few small ones. Like one time I didn't have any money and I really wanted a gym membership, so I made like a little chaos sigil where you write out the statement of intent and cross out all the vowels, and you take the remaining letters and make a symbol out of those letters. And I remember like I wanted a gym membership, and then the next day my friend asked if he could get me a membership so we could go to the gym together and stuff like that. But the problem with that kind of approach to magic is that it doesn't really seem to change anything. Like it's interesting and it's fun at first, and it can be nice to have these little benefits, but it doesn't actually fix any problems. Like if you have recurring money issues and you do a money spell, you might get a little bit of cash or something, but you'll be right back where you started as soon as it's gone. Or if you have recurring relationship issues and you get a new partner, well, those same issues from your past issues will just show up probably even faster in this new person. And or you want a new job, but you have a recurring issue where your boss is always a tyrant, and you get a new job through magic, but your boss is still a tyrant and makes the whole thing miserable. So it doesn't really change anything. It's almost like you're really just manifesting your karma, like I mean the real like original interpretation of karma, not the moral scorekeeper kind of version that we've somehow come up with in this like westernized version of karma. Um, I'm actually reminded of one story. This didn't really have anything specifically to do with like something that happened during a magical experience, like an operation or something. But I was once invited to this like Native American meetup, like a yurt. There was this group called, I think it's the Sacred Hoop Ministries. There are these two guys. There's Rainbow Eagle and Little Eagle. They're twins, and they were like Okla Choctaw elders, and they would go around and do talks sometimes. And so I get invited to this thing. And there was a few interesting things that happened, but the thing that really got me, like, so I show up, and one of the guys starts talking to me immediately, And when we all sit down to listen to, I think it was Rainbow Eagle, who was like a kind of a small, skinny guy, and then Little Eagle was a really big guy. It was kind of funny. Um, but he goes up to sit down and talk, and I sit down on the floor. Little Eagle comes and finds me and sits right next to me. And during this talk, like the guy keeps saying exactly what I'm thinking as I think it. Like he's answering questions I'm asking without having to actually ask them. And he, at one point, I started to feel just really weird. Like I started to feel like I can only describe it as like electricity. It felt like I stuck my finger in a light socket. There was like just this bubbling electric feeling under my skin, and I like kept breathing real heavy. And like my hands were starting to feel like kind of locked, like I couldn't bend my fingers. And I'm starting to think I want to ask like what's going on. And then a friend that I came with asks the question that I'm thinking of, and he gave a weird answer. He said something about if you take an egg and two like dumbbell weights and you put it in the middle of the hole and you place one on top of it, you can put pressure on the egg without breaking it. It's kind of a weird answer, but I guess I kind of got it. And so I look up over to Little Eagle over next to me here, and he's like on his knees, kind of like meditating like this, and then he looks at me and he's like kind of motions like just do what I'm doing. And as I'm sitting there, like, I can't ask the question, I can't speak, I can't move, and he's kind of motioning to just go with it. And then I had the thought, I'll just go with it, and it'll be over in a little while. And then the guy giving the talk looks at me and winks, like right as I had that thought. It was like the two most psychic beings I've ever met in my life. It was wild. Uh, that marked the beginning of a pretty wild, difficult time in my life. So that was interesting. Man, there's been a lot of things, but not all of them are coming to mind right now. Yeah, what else? I mean, there's been plenty of times where people I've had to use like binding or banishing magic to try to remove a person from my life who's giving me trouble or threatening me or something like that, and then the next day they just kind of disappear and I never see them again. There's one, I don't know if I should even get into it. This one's bizarre, and I still don't know what to think about it to this day. So at one point, I had this roommate and him and his girlfriend, and when I moved out, they tried to make up some story that I had left a bunch of like I had burned holes in the carpet. And they sent me a picture like zoomed in on this little tiny piece of ash from an incense that was, and they zoomed in on it to make it look like it was like a burned hole. And he said something to the effect of, you better give me, X amount of dollars or you and your family are fucked." And I'm like, "Oh, you threatening me, are you?" So I grabbed one of my I was making these little talismans out of wax and stones at the time. And so I grab one and I kind of do a ritual to kind of like just take care of them, make sure they can't do anything to me. Nothing particularly bad. I'm not like trying to like hurt the person or anything, just, making so they can't do anything to me. And the weirdest thing happens. I get a text from one of our mutual friends. He's like, "Dude, what did you do?" This guy's freaking out. So apparently the guy and his girlfriend, they had taken some LSD, so that kind of explains a good amount of this. They said they came home and there was a purple candle burning in the hallway, and five people in black robes showed up at their house and started threatening them. Now, I don't know five people who would do something like that. I don't even know five people who practice magic, let alone anybody who would go and do something like that for me. So I have no idea to this day what that was. And so they said that they ran inside after these people showed up. And then they said that there were faces and hands in the walls that were trying to grab them. So they ran out of the house to a neighbor's house, tell the neighbors that they're being chased by a cult. And then the cops show up and he says something to the effect of cults don't exist. And then they get both taken to the psych ward. I don't know. Nothing like that has ever happened before or since. That was one of the weirdest, craziest things I've ever seen. Typically, magic does not do that kind of thing, and I'm sure had they not been tripping, most of that probably would not have happened. But that was a very bizarre experience. And it's strange how before I went through the whole initiation process, magic worked in a way that you might expect it to work. It felt like magic. And I had all these insane, profound experiences, and things were just so exciting and interesting. And then for some reason, after I went through the portal grade and the Golden Dawn system, everything changed. And now magic does not work the same way for me at all anymore. And I have theories about it, but I still don't completely understand why. Now it's almost like it just turned my whole consciousness inside out, where now my entire world is just this one big reflection of like my state of consciousness. Like every little repressed emotion or trauma that I might have had, turns into like this exaggerated experience that I have to deal with in real life, like as a real manifestation, running into situations that I cannot seem to change with physical effort, no matter how hard I try. And the only option is to just face the emotions that come up in relation to it, and then suddenly these unchangeable problems just go away on their own. Or if I try to do pretty much any form of magic I try to do now tends to maybe give me a fleeting experience or shift in state of mind, and then it kind of seems to just make everything start to go wrong. Like a lot of things start going wrong, bad things start happening. Every problem in my life seems to get exacerbated for like a week or two, depending on which type of magic I use. And it's kind of weird. I never expected that to be something that would change through going through that process. It seems like it's turned magic into this very holistic process that is 100% based on your state. And I think that that was, to some degree, still the case. Like, I think that is really the nature of humans. But for some reason, going through the initiation process made, like, really turned on some crazy, flipped on a switch that I can't flip off now. I mean, that word initiation, if you think about it, it's not initiation into a secret club. It's an initiation as in it turns something on, and initiate, take off, and 10, 9, you're turning something on, the flame of creation or whatever you want to call it. Uh, but yeah, those are just some of the things that kind of come to mind when thinking about interesting experiences with magic. There's plenty of others, but I mean we're talking about like 15 or so years worth of experiences, and a lot of them are strange. And there's been a lot of things that have happened between that time. And anyways, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh yeah, dreams. I've had a lot of very strange dreams ever since getting into magic. I feel like I have encountered almost every type of spirit at least once in my dreams. Um, in fact, when I first learned how to memorize the tarot cards, I uh, basically did this thing where you go through each card and you write down in a notebook the sort of the general meaning that's in the book that comes with the deck, and then you also write down why you think that card means what it means. And you do that with every card. It was a process that was about 4 hours. I just went through the whole thing. And that night, I have a dream where I'm holding a deck of tarot cards, and they got wet somehow. I think I dropped them in the toilet or something. They got wet, and I picked them up, and suddenly it dissolved like an Alka-Seltzer tablet into my arm, and I've had the cards memorized ever since. They're like the back of my hand. Um, and then the following nights, for about a week after that, each night I had an encounter with a different type of spirit in my dream. Um, there was an angel, a demon, a dead person, um, one of the Olympian spirits from the Arbitel of Magic. The one that really stood out the most, well, two of them were the two angel dreams, really. One of them, I was walking through a park. So there's this park, and it was like a place where it's an eternal sunrise. The sky is always a sunrise all the time. And I'm walking through this park with this guy who's wearing red robes, and he's got big old wings and long hair, and he's just kind of like just having a casual conversation. It was no like biblical like thou shalt, it was just a regular conversation, and he basically casually tells me, "Yeah, Enochian magic's pretty much the most powerful thing there is," and that was pretty much the dream. The other one was the Olympian spirit Eophiel, I believe, and he looked like this something out of a video game. It was like this guy. He had Have you ever seen the game Diablo? I don't know, but there's like an angel. He kind of can't really see his face except for glowing eyes, wearing a hood, like a blue hood, and like this weird armor. And he had big wings made of like big tendrils of light. And he said something to the effect of, the secret of astral travel is found in the throat chakra. I still to this day don't completely understand what that meant, but it was a very clear message that always kind of stuck with me. The others were kind of interesting, but nothing too special. I've had several dreams where I mean, I can only describe them as astral travel because, I've had lucid dreams before, but in a lucid dream, you can usually do things, you can like think about a place and just teleport there. You can fly around, or you can manifest things just out of nothing. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff. But in these sort of astral projection dreams, the rules are much more defined. It's like literally feels like walking around. You're still lucid. You know that you're in a dream. You know who you are and that this is not your normal waking life, and you're fully aware, but it's like you're in a different world. You can't do things like fly or manifest or influence the area around you in any way, and you can't just wake yourself up either. And that's where it gets a little scary sometimes, where you're in this other place, but you can't seem to just will yourself out of it like you can in a lucid dream if you want to. And in some of them, there are people in those dreams who know who I am, but I don't know who they are, and they start getting angry with me because they think I'm pretending to not recognize them. I mean, if you go to the store and you see a friend and you're like, "Oh, hey," and they're like, "Have I met you?" It'd be kind of offensive, right? So that's happened several times where I apparently have this other life in another world where people know a different version of me, and I just pop in there every once in a while and get very confused. And it's always interesting because if you ever mention in a dream, if you mention the idea that you think you're dreaming, everyone in that dream will get very upset with you. They don't like it. It's That's been true across every lucid dream or astral travel, whatever I've had. In all of them, if you mention that you think these people are dreams, they get very upset about it. They don't like it. And there was one time where I was really excited about being in this other world, and I start asking the people there. I'm asking them all kinds of questions. I'm super excited. Like, have you been to Earth? Like, what is this place? How does this work? What's over here? Just asking a million questions. And this guy, he kind of like leads me over to this ledge, and he just kind of just pushes me off the ledge until then I woke up. Like he was just like, fucking kid. Like he was like I annoyed the person with my questions, so he forced me to wake up. It was kind of funny. Anyways, I'm kind of been rambling on for a little while now, but those are just some things off the top of my head that were kind of cool regarding magic. But anyways, check out the website if you want to get readings. You can do that there. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.